22 money principles and money mistakes. These are absolutely vital to know to avoid making. These are the ones that over my career and life, that I wish I knew, that I've learned from coaching dozens of my mentees and students to make a lot more money, that I'm going to now pass on to you guys, also that I've learned from my mentors. Number one, trying to have multiple streams of income from the start. Now, for my entrepreneurs, my people who own businesses, which is really a gateway to a lot of freedom. Not everybody needs to. You can make a lot of money being an employee. You need to get self-aware and understand who you are and what you're best at. Do not just get gravitated towards owning businesses and being an entrepreneur because it's sexy and you watch a couple Gary Vee or Alex Hormozi videos, or me. Please do not, because it is. If you want to know what it's like, just ask me and I can give you the perspective from mine and many of the people that I've coached. So, in the beginning, this is a mistake I made, and that's trying to have multiple streams of income from the start. It distracts you, it takes away your time, it distracts your focus. You need focus, laser focus when starting a business, and really some of the most successful entrepreneurs, 9-figure, 10-figure entrepreneurs will say, get your first million first in your business before you think about other streams. Now, I haven't even done that. So you could say I'm not abiding completely by that a rule that they say, but I've gotten far enough along the way where I've critically analyzed the situation, and then I've seen, okay, other streams are relevant here to build. And I'm willing to make the mistake as well, knowing I have a level of financial security to lean back on. Many of you do not. And so when you're beginning, just focus on one thing, please. And the reason I can show you this is this. The key to achieving massive results is from one of my mentors, Brandon Carter. So you can see on the left, pursuing everything gets you a whole bunch of not much. Because if you have a certain amount of energy in the day represented by that one big energy line, well, then that energy and time, it can only be distributed across a certain amount of things. And then how much focus and depth and breadth you have within that is limited. Going back to talk about employees, many of you are employees. Many of you work for somebody. Okay, and a question that I encourage you all to ask as you're making 30, 40, 50, 60 grand, below 100 grand is, who in your organization currently is making the amount of money that you want to make? If you don't have an idea of how much you want to make, then we have an exercise that I'm going to take you through on how to create your dream rich life. That's in this series that you can watch. Now, let's say you want to make 95K, or everyone wants to make 100K. If you plan to have a family, you absolutely, and you want to live in a somewhat expensive city like Melbourne or Sydney, other states like other cities like Perth and Northern Territory, they definitely are nowhere near as expensive. You can get away with not earning as much. But the way the world is going, you want to be prepared. So a minimum of 100K, I think, is an absolute bare minimum for anybody who wants to have a good living, a decent, I'm going to say good, decent living, and even get yourself the mental space to even think about having children and supporting them through good healthcare and a good schooling system. So, opposite for employee, you need to ask, who in your organization is making the money that you want to make? Okay, then you ask, do I want to do that? Do I want to do that? Am I willing to do that? Do I want to do that job? If so, great. Figure out the skills and the tools and the resources and the information that you need to know to ascend to that level faster than the average person. Just because the company average has taken 5 years to reach 150K or whatever does not mean you have to do that. There are exceptions and outliers to everything. I've accelerated at a very high rate compared to the average coach in my industry, and health professional in my industry. So we know that there's things you can do to ascend faster. So you can talk about it with me and I can help you critically analyze how you can do that. But you need to ask, who's making the money in the company? If who's making the money in the company, ask a few of those people what it's like, how long it took them. Ask them questions. You don't have to ask about the money. And if you don't know how much they're making, figure it out. Go to Glassdoor, type in Google, use ChatGPT. Figure out an approximate of what the people in those positions are making. And then ask yourself, do I want to do that? Am I willing to do that? If the answer is no, then what are you doing at this company? What are you doing? Is it a platform for something else? Is it a stepping stone? Is it just to get you by in the meantime? You need to have a plan. You must have a plan. Like police officers, I coach a few emergency services individuals. There is a structured increase in pay that we can plot on a map on about a yearly basis, particularly when you go up in ranks. Well, I could tell. Okay, there's a vision for the future that is positive. Great, 10K increase. That's meaningful, etc., etc. We can go higher levels, different special operations groups. With your work, what is it? Figure it out. Write it down. Is that what you want to do? Because if it's not, then you need to get clear on what the stepping stone is. Because as an employee, if you just solve rich people problems, you can get rich people money. So a cleaner in a public, I want to use that example. Oh, yes, a cleaner is a good example, because a cleaner working for a company, let's say just an average company. I've had cleans before in my old home in Melbourne. Saves a lot of time. Big time hack. It's not a fancy thing. It's simply an investment of time. If you make more than $30, $40 an hour, then you should have a cleaner and people to outsource getting your groceries delivered, because you can then make more money in that time. $30, $40 an hour. They're probably getting paid maybe 15, 20. Okay, you're a cleaner. Okay, you could own a cleaning business, or you could stay an employee. And where could you go? You could start cleaning for high net worth homes and individuals. You could go to gated communities and wealthy areas and knock on people's doors and say, "How you doing, sir?" And you dress nice. Right? Because some of you are going to think like, "Oh, I don't want to be a cleaner." Some of you could be a cleaner for high net worth individuals in wealthy areas and make double the amount of money you're doing now. You could put your headphones in, and guess what? You could listen, and you could learn, network. You could be like, "Yeah, I'm just a cleaner," but after 3 months, 6 months, you learn what these people do, and you're like, maybe one of them is in a field that you want to go into, and maybe you summon up the courage one day to, "How you doing, sir? I've been working and cleaning your home for 3 months, but can I have a minute? I just wanted to say something, and this is not certainly my end goal. I wanted to work towards XYZ, and I noticed you were doing XYZ, and so I was wondering if there's something I could do to earn 10 minutes of your time where I could speak about that, and I'm happy to clean your home actually for free, even for 2 months, but even that, it's like they don't give a fuck about the money." So you could figure out some type of value exchange, completely no pressure to say no. I don't want to try and take advantage of you, and be super respectful, super professional. And so just as an example, solve rich people problems. I think it's a later one today in the presentation. Solve rich people problems, and you could just see how going where the money is, go where it's raining if you want to get wet. Let's keep moving. 2, saving your money. Our parents are wrong. Dumb advice. How many people how many rich people how many people with money that they told you they got wealthy by saving their money? So I wouldn't take advice from people you don't want to be in this position of, you don't respect, or aren't making the money approximately of what you're making. So I would say ignore money advice from poor people. In fact, ignore money advice, but in fact, don't ignore it, because there's probably some advice that maybe you don't want to do. You can learn very powerfully from what not to do from people who are in the position you don't want to be in. When my parents are speaking to me about money, what I do is I just respectfully listen. I don't fight too much. If there's something I disagree on, I'll express it, but I'm not going to fight it. And I'm certainly not going to disrespect them by saying, "Oh, well, I make more money than you, so I'm right and you're wrong." Certainly not. I just let them say their piece. I disagree with logic or have a conversation based off my experience, principles, and logic, and leave it at that. But you need to have some courage yourself to not just, be supplicating to your parents or the people who are giving you advice and say, "Oh, just because they're my parents, I should listen to everything they say." No, you can listen, but taking action off that advice is a completely different story. Unless they're in the position that you want to be in, then definitely listen to them. Some of your parents might be wealthy, successful people who are very virtuous and just really great human beings. Those people obviously listen to. Saving your money is an inefficient strategy. As I'll show you later, your money is being deflated. It's being deflated and it's being devalued by inflation. I should say, it's more accurately, it's being devalued by inflation. And money that's sitting in the account looks nice to your self-esteem for a moment, and it feels like security, but it's really it's fake. It's not even real. It's not even yours. The bank can take it. Like, I don't get into all that. You can only withdraw about $200,000. The insurance only covers you for about $200,000. So meaning, if the bank goes bankrupt, they will only give you $200,000 back. Every bank is different. Depends. Most American banks are insured for about $200,000 per account. So in times of turmoil and conflict, you have to be aware of that. So if you have more than 100, 200,000 in an account in the future, you definitely want to invest your money in other areas to not be vulnerable to that, unless you're okay losing that cash. Anyway, that's a different conversation. There's so many reasons why keeping that cash in the account, you need to make your money work for you. Make that money work. Make that, you got to make that money work. And that money can then make more money and multiply. Like, you need to invest it. I would love if 5% of you, there's probably only 1 or 2 people listening to this out of the hundreds that will listen to this who will really seriously consider doing a mentorship and actually by me and actually like go to the next level. Okay. But that's cool. None of you have to. This is the first gateway to just get you guys exposed to better thinking and better principles and better money education. Okay. But that's what I mean. Some of you got 10K, 5K, 20K in your account right now. It's just sitting there and makes you feel good. What the fuck are you doing with it? Do something with it. What's your plan? How are you going to multiply that? How are you going to multiply that so you can one day be stable enough to create a family or to give back or to create that business you wanted or just live a free life and travel the way you wanted? What's your plan? We can talk about it. Here's why cash costs you money. The value, and this is, I'm going to explain it now. The value of your money is measured by your ability to exchange things for it. This is called purchasing power. So now we're talking about some terminology here. It's called purchasing power. Oops. Inflation and deflation refer to how much stuff costs. So, you've heard me talk about these terms. Let's define them. Inflation, deflation, it refers to changes rather in how much things cost, right? That's it. Deflation, things cost less. Inflation, the same thing costs more. Sometimes this means it's likely that you have to spend more of your dollars to acquire an equal quantity of goods or services. For example, all of us have to spend more of our dollars if you want to take a loan out and buy a home or buy a car, because interest rates are higher. Purchasing power is less. And also, obviously, the real estate market, you have to assess that. Is that going up or down? If it's going down, that's good for the buyer. If it's going up, that's good for the seller. Why does inflation happen? Why does cash cost you money? So the government do a variety of things. They print money. Yes, they literally print more money. It's all a fugazi. And when you print more money, the economics of supply and demand dictate that if something is in higher abundance and higher supply, then it is worth less. If I have 50 coaching slots available and I'm just starting out as a health professional and an entrepreneur, then I have a lot less leverage to charge a high amount. If I have 2 spots available, then I have a lot more leverage. Supply and demand. Cost push. It's called cost push. Goods, services increase due to scarcity and demand. That's a link of what I just said there. And benefit. You can charge more / get paid more. And I'm just describing how there's a benefit to supply and demand curves changing is because when demand goes up, this is great, you can charge more. This is for my entrepreneurs. This is for anybody selling a product or a service, even if you work for a company. If the demand goes up and supply stays the same or even goes down, well, you should be discussing how those prices should go up. Basic economics. So you see these interest rates jack up, as many of you have seen over the last years. Did you ever ask why that's happening? Let me explain to you just very basic principles. So interest rates go up to reduce hyperinflation. So if we know inflation is increasing the costs of goods and services, interest rates will go up because the government and the Federal Reserve in America or the Reserve Bank in Australia, they'll dictate the money supply and they'll dictate the interest rates changing. And so if you want to see where the world is heading, it's really a good idea to watch where interest rates head. Now, people try and predict these things. They're incredibly hard to predict. Pretty much no one can do it. And there's too many hundreds of variables that influence it. But we can base off probability. And there's a great X account that I recommend you follow called TED Talks Macro. And if you don't know what X is Twitter now. TED Talks Macro. And a really good account that I've subscribed to and I watch to give me some indications about economical shifts. And he's Australian too. So interest rates go up. This is to reduce inflation. Because hyperinflation, when things get super expensive and out of control, that's really bad. Now, here's why cash costs you. This is going to blow some of your mind. The average year-on-year inflation, so since 1950 in Australia, is 4.5%. That's the target by the Reserve Bank of Australia is 2 to 3%. So meaning the Reserve Bank in Australia, and America has their own, sets a target for inflation. It's like we're expecting and we're anticipating that the increase of goods and services will increase. Our target is 2 to 3%. They're literally saying that shit is going to increase in cost. Your living is going to continue to increase. The average has actually been 4.5%. So year on year, over average, it's increased 4.5% since 1950. So, do some math here. $1,000 in your account. Let's say you got $1,000 in your account. With in the average inflation, let's call it 3%. Because let's say it's not as high. Let's be a little bit conservative. It's about 3%, right? So it's about the target of the RBA. So inflation, things going up. And $1,000 in your account with 3% inflation over 10 years. And you keep that 1,000 in there because it makes you feel good. Well, how much do you think that costs you? What do you mean how much it costs me? That's right. Keeping money in your account and cash in your account costs you money. $1,000, 3% after 10 years. You have lost $255 in value. The purchasing power of your money, it's still going to say $1,000 in your account. It's still going to say 1,000. But what you can do with that money is now only the equivalent of, up here, $744.09. It's still going to say 1,000. But you can't buy $1,000 worth of things anymore 10 years later. Now, you're only going to be able to buy $744. Now, of course, you got money in the account. You probably have some interest on there. It's 2 to 3%. We're not trying to make this a super complex case. I'm just trying to show you a simple framework of how inflation can limit the purchasing power of every dollar you have. Most of you, though, aren't shifting money into interest accounts on a routine basis because, Commonwealth Bank, they'll do interest rate special for 6 months and you got to move it to another account with a different interest rate, or you lock it into a term deposit, or you put it in, a bond. I'm going to talk about that later. That can help offset it, but at best, it'll stay neutral. At best, you won't lose money. At best, you'll just keep it the same. But then if you just kept it the same, you could have done something with it. So even then, you're losing potential. So 25% of its value over 10 years will be lost due to inflation. Isn't that crazy? How much less our money is worth over time? Now, there are resets. There are economical resets because technically this just doesn't happen forever. There's ebbs and flows, okay? And that happens during recessions and things like that. So a recession has a purpose. And you can see here. You can see here the on the left y-axis inflation expectations, and on the x-axis you see the time. So if it's hard to read, it's February 2010 all the way to 22, which is during that time. Remember that time, 2022, 2021. Well, you can see how it bounced. So it would have been good to see 2008 actually with this. And so this helps explain why so many businesses don't last more than 10 years, because they can't survive a full cycle. a full inflation deflation cycle. Because you can start a business or you can start making money during good times. When things get hard, can you survive that? And we're going through hard times now. And so we're going to see. We're going to really see. All of us are going to see. So you can see how the inflation, inflation increased significantly first it dipped. See how much it dipped? Because of the economical, the global conditions during the 2020, 2021 events that we all experienced. Because people were going through such hard times, there was a lot of printing of money, and things became a lot less expensive because people weren't going out as much, people weren't purchasing as much. But then the government pumped a bunch of money. They just printed a bunch of money and gave out all this aid. And I was saying it to the people close to me. I didn't publicly vocalize this, I don't think, but I was like, this is bad. This is not good. And some people were saying this, and it's like, this is going to come back around. We're going to have to pay all this money back. In interest rates changing, in inflation occurring, and in tax increasing. It's all going to come back. And everybody, a lot of us, including me, like we took the handouts because times were tough and no one could work. So obviously that's why things went down. And then there was this big bounce back. And now you're seeing that. People started buying homes. I'm like, I'm thinking you're not thinking long term enough. You're buying a home now because it's 0% or 0.5% interest rates on a loan. But you've only fixed it to 3 years. You need to fix that bitch to 20 years. You need to fix it for 10. You need like long-term security here. And a lot of people didn't have that. And now, 3 years later, they're fixed as changing to variable. So it's changed from if you don't know what fixed is, it's like fixed 3%. So that's fixed number. And the variable, it changes. It changes every quarter or something. I can't remember the variables that change, but it changes depending on the current economical climate. So now you've gone from a 0.5% and you've calculated your budget according to 0.5%. And this is why just taking loans out is not something I just recommend, or I exercise a high degree of caution for a lot of people. You're just taking a loan out to buy a car or buy a home. Have you done the math? Have you done the math of the worst and best case scenarios? In fact, you should do the math for the worst case scenarios. You need to plan accordingly for a 6% interest rate, 8%, 10%, 12%. Can you budget that? Can you budget that? Because I got clients who've taken loans out and they got babies, they got children now. I feel for them. But it's like, it's honestly, it's your error. It's your mistake. You didn't foresee. You didn't You didn't make a plan of how you were going to survive that. Because you didn't expose it. All this information I'm teaching you, it's out there. I'm just aggregating it all into like a really nice presentation or a bunch of videos. All of this is out there already. You didn't learn that. And so now you're behind. So good thing is you don't have to get more behind. And you can continue to address the ignorance and then become enlightened and make better decisions from here. That's why we're doing this. This is US inflation. And the CPI, Consumer Price Index, is basically an index takes all these parameters of how much life costs, everything, transportation, food, rent, everything. And it averages it. You can see the CPI. Let's see CPI now. Let's have a look. CPI right now. So it's just a measure of the average change in prices of things. And usually people will say, well, the CPI is a massive underestimation of how much things really cost. But this is just inflation here. And we can see the ups and downs. If you look, probably the most notable, like when our parents were having loans to buy homes, they would have talked about interest rates being 10, 12, 14%, and then being like, oh, interest rates were really high back then. They were really high back then, and now they're so much lower. Well, they're not that much lower. And two, the cost of living and the price of homes that our parents and grandparents purchased homes off was 10x to 20x less expensive. It was about 1 to 2 to 3 years worth of salary, not 20 years of salary or 10 years of salary. So big difference, isn't it? And so now inflation, this is October 2022. And then you can see here, US inflation calculator, you can see it slowly coming down. But if you look at the Federal Reserve, and here we can go, I look at the US because the US, Australia follows the US closely. And so the Federal Reserve interest rates is 5.5%. It stayed steady there. A year ago it was 3.25. So this is much higher than it was. It used to be 1, 2, 3. for 4.1%, and then the CPI is 5%. So these are meaningfully high ranges, and you can see their target. Like I said, the RBA's target is 2 to 3%. You can see that being represented here, and how much higher things are relative. So let's go back. Another nice example of how the purchasing power of a dollar bill. This is just a rough kind of visual diagram. How in 1913, just a bit over 110 years ago, compared to then, the purchasing power of that dollar is 90% less. And you can see this in examples of I could get a newspaper for $1. Now a newspaper is like $4, or you can't even buy a newspaper. So just examples there. And I'll finish on this one before we get to our next video, because I realize we're not going to be able to do all 22 in one video. And so number 3, delaying action and investments cost you money. A lot of you are thinking, should I do this? Should I invest in this? Should I do this course, this mentorship, this coach, this, stock, whatever it may be? Think about your decision. But a lot of you are procrastinating, delaying action significantly, and it's actually costing you more money than you could be gaining. Think once before investing, think twice before spending. A lot of you are not thinking before spending and are thinking 10 times more for investing. It's a massive contradiction and a logic fail, because spending has no ROI. You buy the Uber Eats, you buy the new piece of clothing, for the 7th dress, pair of shorts, new shoes, watch, whatever. The ROI is only superfluous. It's materialistic. It's a dopamine hit. You probably don't truly need that other pair of piece of clothing. So the ROI is extremely low. Investing, big, high ROI. You should flip it. You should be thinking much more with spending. In fact, you should ask yourself every time before you spend something is, how many hours of work would I need to work to buy this? If it's a $100 piece of clothing and you make $30 an hour, you need to spend at least 3 hours of your life working. So you need to ask yourself, is 3 hours of my life and my time worth this piece of clothing that I'm going to get rid of in a year, or I'm going to grow out of, or I'm going to wear once a month? You see, for wealthy people, they can just buy that shit because it's such a small ratio of the amount of money and a relative amount of money they make. For you, it is not. You don't make $1,000 an hour. You don't make $50,000 an hour. Not yet. So think once before investing and think twice before spending. Think about the things that give you ROI and take assertive, immediate action on them. One way to do it is, if you're ever concerned about investing into a mentor, into a coach, into a program, into whatever it may be that can help you make money, look and analyze if they have a guarantee. If they have a money back guarantee, because if it's over like $500 to $1,000, right? If it's small, if it's like $50 a month or $100 a month, it's small, right? Just do it. It's an easily reversible decision. You're not losing much at all. You would spend that much on a night out, right? Stop getting so emotional about your money, because you're contradicting yourself in all these other areas. If it's a bigger, larger investment of your proportion of income, then just ask, hey, do you have a guarantee? Meaning, if I don't make the money back, do I get it back? If I don't make the money, do you continue to work with me until I do the program or course or whatever it may be? Because if they do, just like I do, because I have all those guarantees, because I don't want no money. If I can't make you more money, what am I taking your money for? It's disingenuous. It's low integrity for me. It's low vibration, low integrity. So I don't do that. I have a guarantee. Simple. And I just mentor people for free until they make the money back, because everybody goes at a different pace. It's okay if that happens. And so ascertain whether the person that you're looking to invest in, or the thing you're looking to invest in, has that type of guarantee. Obviously, stocks, bonds, real estate, things don't have that guarantee. You have to level a much higher level of risk, but with risk comes reward. So you have to make a calculated decision there. And so that's why I would say, probably don't spend hundreds of hours learning about stocks or bonds or investments in real estate unless you are planning to make that your primary source of future or current income, and or you have a mentor who can guide you along the way step by step. Okay, because if you're trying to do it all on your own, it's a massive grave mistake that you'll end up probably failing at, or taking decades to get there. and ends up having to work with people anyway. So the biggest investments you will make will be in yourself. Invest in the S&Me. That's a later principle. Invest in the S&Me 500, not the S&P 500 to begin with. The S&Me 500. The S&P 500 is the top 500 companies in the world on the stock market, US. S&Me 500 is a term coined by Alex Hormozi, an entrepreneur, very wealthy entrepreneur, puts out a lot of amazing free content. And invest in you first, in your health, in your wealth, in your mind, in your body, in your enrichment, in books, in education, in courses, in videos, in coaching, in mentoring. Do that first. Do that first because you can skip so many of the steps. And so that's the first 3 of the 22. And the next one we're going to go on will be compound interest, savings, money goes where attention flows. The biggest suffocator of wealth is freedom. How much can I make? And much, much, much more. Click over the next video when you are ready to stop being poor, broke, and get rich, wealthy, and free.